Hello, YouTube. I changed my latency. So I told it to, that looks better. I'm not thinking, like, this preview window is not behaving today. So, can I see myself? That looks good. Okay. Minimizing OBS. Just counting the seconds here. Alright, what is up, YouTube? People out there, coders, fellow coders. Is there somebody really watching me? I don't know. It's hard to tell. I have such a hard time. Am I watching myself here? I don't know. Hello. Well, whatever. So if you're watching, thank you. I don't know what you're doing here, but I'm glad you're here. I noticed people popping in and out, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't me. It could be me. I could be the concurrent viewer here. And then every time I pop in here, and then I go like that, and then I'm not the concurrent viewer. So I don't know. I know I'm getting views. One video has like 20 views, so that's good. I think my most popular YouTube video is currently e-sail. It's a video game teaching you how to sail. And it's got like 7,000 views. And my daughter was looking at it and she's like, 7,000 views? And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Anyway, there are certainly a lot more people out there that are getting more views than I am. But I'm having a good time doing this. So I'm hoping that just even laying down these videos the way I'm doing while I'm building Mitta is enough for, you know, posterity, just for me to be able to watch it. I watched my episode from yesterday, last night, and I did it kind of late, and I think I'm going to try to stick to doing them in the morning, which sometimes I have stuff I need to do in the morning, so it's kind of hard, but it's afternoon now. I have a beer, so I'm drinking a Sapporo, so that's it's a good time when you can drink a beer and code. So today, what I'm going to be working on is, yesterday we finished up crawl. Crawl was pretty much all done. I did add something to crawl that's important. I forgot to do my intro here, but I'll get to it here in a second. So I'm going to talk about the crawl stuff that I added. So one of the things that I noted yesterday in the beginning of the episode was, I'm going to turn Sonos down a little bit so I don't get, I just need a little bit of music playing, but not a lot. Was that I noted that whenever you add a spool, and this is the spool object, whenever you add a spool, it could be a URL, which is, you're telling it to crawl a URL, so then it creates a spool for the URL, which then could have multiple images. And then you can also just create a spool for uploading images. So if you wanted to use Mitta for, you know, uploading your own photos and then running machine learning libraries on them, you could do that. Eventually you'll be able to do that, to tag them. So if you wanted to, you could, for example, run like, ResNet, which is a model. There's a whole bunch of different ResNet models, but ResNet is a model that I want to make sure I don't hit the microphone today because it's kind of loud when I do that. So sorry if I do it, I apologize in advance. But ResNet is a model that's been trained, and then there's different size models. So you have one that runs on like the Raspberry Pi. So if you have a Raspberry Pi, you can run it on a Raspberry Pi. And there's another model you can run on a Coral device. So this is a Coral from Google, and this is a TPU unit, a small one. And that plugs into the Raspberry Pi, and it makes it a little bit faster than the Pi running the model. And with that, for example, with ResNet, it knows about, I think, like 80 to 100 objects. So if you wanted to automatically tag your photos, for example, or tag a bunch of images with some of those objects, you'll be able to do that with Mitta eventually. All right, so as I was saying, we finished up the crawl function, but then one of the problems is if you pass it a URL and then I create a spool, well, if you create a spool, it's always going to create a new spool. So if you're just creating a spool here, with the upload method, then you're not actually passing in the URL. And I don't think I want to do that. I think I always want to use the crawl method for creating spools with URLs, because the Grub box has to go out and take a picture of the page, and then it uploads it after creating a spool object. But if you create a spool off of a URL for a given user, if somebody else does it, then you're just going to do it anyway, because all the entire system is privatized. So if you take a picture and upload it, it's private to you. If you take a image of a website, it's private to you. But if you take another image of a website, well, then I shouldn't create another spool. I should just add the new image to the spool for the website. So in other words, a website will have a series of images that could be attributed to it. So that's sort of the, it's a little hazy, like what I should do with multiple images. Should I replace the image of the website for the user? Or should I let them continue to add images of the website? I don't know. Maybe I have a little queue. So I keep the first one, and then you add another one, and I keep that one, and then you add another one, and I keep that one, and then you add another one, and I get rid of the last one. So like a FIFO queue, right? First in, first out. And make it like 4 or 5 images that I'll store for it. So I haven't figured that out yet. I might get to it in this episode, I might not. The main intent for this episode is to work on the grub command, which is the thing that you issue in the shell to tell it to index something, because it's currently broken. And it's one of the important pieces of the puzzle for putting this all together. So I need to finish that up today. So I did go back and realize that if there was a spool already, so I said I added a new function to spool, or a new method to the spool class, and that is I added the get by UID URL function. And what that does is it grabs grabs a spool if it exists that matches your user ID or whoever's user ID that's making the call, plus the URL you're sending in, and then it's just a straight up match on the URL. So it's just a exact match on the string. So if you were to change the URL slightly, I'm not doing any deduplication of URLs that, for example, map to the same URL. So a lot of times if you're running a crawler or writing a crawler and you have a URL and then it returns a 302, like a 302 or something like that, which is a redirect, then you might want to say the URL that you went to go get it originally is the same URL as the one that was returned in the 302. But I'm not doing that because that's a lot of work, and I'm just not going to do it right now. It just doesn't make any sense. If people want to duplicate a URL inside their index, then that's up to you if you want to do that. If you want to dedupe it or whatever, you can do whatever you want with it. I don't care. If I get a request for it later, we'll figure it out. But for now, it's going to stay the way it is. So you make this call, or I make this call in the system to get by UID URL, and then that goes and looks it up. So then that keeps it from duplicating an entry, creating a new spool if the URL already exists. And I did test it, and what it does is it just keeps adding file names to the spool, which is good, but at the same time, you can see here, at the same time, if you add multiple URLs, so for example, you're going to get another hash coming in, because what happens is the grub box just makes up a file name that's a hash. And this is just to keep people from guessing what the file name is. I kicked around having the file name be something like news_google.com or news_google_com. I may still go back and do that, but then the problem is if I have multiple shots of the page, then do I put a date stamp on there? a timestamp on it for that particular file name. I mean, that seems reasonable. So then in that case, I could just have hashes plus a file name. So instead of this being just being a straight up array of strings, it would be an array or a list of dictionaries that one of them would be the file name, one of the keys would be the file name, and the other key would be like the time it was created, the creation time for the image. And I think that's probably what I'll end up doing. So maybe I'll do that today. We'll see. Okay, so hopefully I'm going to jump into coding a little bit faster in this one. I've also tried to, if you notice here, I've changed the colors, and I noticed that whenever I was switching to the darker color on the TV I was watching it on, then the TV got darker. I don't know why. So I don't know if everybody else's TV was doing that. My TV wasn't doing it, but the other TV I was looking at was doing it. I don't know why. But then I also noticed my face got darker whenever the light changed on the screen. So I'm trying to keep the screen lightness on my face the same, and it'll help a little bit because it's light out and I got the window open and stuff. And so anyway, it's probably a problem with filming at night. All right, so, and I've also tried to increase the font size for everybody so everybody can see the fonts better. And just to explain what's going on this screen, it's a little they're all the same color now, but I got two PowerShells over here. And this is, let's see here. Do I have the same thing running in both places? I think I do. Yes. No. No, don't kill it there, but, well, alright, whatever. Okay, well, it's running down here. Let me kill it too, because I started them both, and I'm just going to make sure that one of them's working. Okay, so the other one, whatever, we can do something with that, maybe. And then this other screen over here, this is the Git. It's for Git. It's like, it's a shell for Windows. And it's for Git. It's for me to manage Git. And I also use it to do curls. And I hope this switching back and forth is not too disturbing. It looks a little, sometimes like the quality drops, but hopefully messing around with the quality a little bit on the stream will help with that a little bit. Okay. With that said, I'm going to jump right into working on the grub command. And when I say grub command, this is what I mean. So I got to log in, and I'm doing this locally, but I notice my desk is wiggling around a little bit, so hopefully that's not too distracting. 710049. 710049. What's happening here? There we go. Sometimes that's window blocks. I don't know why. I think it's PowerShell. Okay, and then I'm pretty sure search is still broken. Let's see. It might be broken. No, it's not broken. It's working. I changed it to where right now the output from search is this is JSON formatted. It's text, but it's JSON formatted. It just lets me know that I can search. It's not returning any images right now, but you can. I've had it in the past where I've been search for taxi, for example, and you hit enter, and then it'll show you a taxi. It'll show you a picture of a taxi, but you can see here's the result for that. And one of them was that I searched for taxi, so that's the first one, this one right here. And you can see the date time right here. And then the second one is just a second or two later, whenever I typed in taxi, it just echoed it. It's just a stupid function that echoes it for when you type it in. And let's see, we can look at it actually. So there's the echo function. And then, so that's what prints this out. And then when I do a search again, that word taxi got inserted into into Solr. And then of course it also inserted whatever I typed earlier into Solr, because it's logging what I'm typing into there as well. And all of this will be formatted nicely later, so I can take that record. We're looking at the raw record coming in from Solr here. And I can take that record later and do things with it. So if it's an image coming back, or it's a spool, I should say. If it's a spool, type the document as a spool, then I can look in the spool and return the images to the user, for example. All right, so what I'm working on today is the grub.js command. So that's this one. And the whole idea, you see it's saying an error there. The whole idea is here that, like what I did with the curl command, -d, don't I want this? Yeah, I just want that, right? I'm gonna just make this shorter just so that I'm being consistent about what I'm using to crawl, what I'm crawling. All right, so what this says is, it says make a post using curl, passing some data, which includes my token. That's how I authenticate. Plus a URL that equals https news.google.com, and I'm going to make that call to localhost/g, which is the Grub endpoint, this one right here. And that's going to run all this code. And it'll hopefully work. And it did. And if I run it again, I expected string or byte-like object. Oh, really? This is a 500 post G. So that was the other error. So I think it's working okay. Maybe? I was blocking again. Yeah, it's working fine. So the error actually came in from this guy. Right here. So that's where the error came in. So when I ran this command here, the grub.js command, then that's what happened. It gave me an error. And the reason probably why is because I'm posting this data here called line, and in this context, this line is whatever I type. So if I type in something like this, maybe I'll make it accurate. News, Google. So I can put in tags, I can put in a URL, or I can put in commands, whatever. So I hit enter and then it's giving me an error, right? And so if we go and look at the JavaScript, do that again, then we can see this is getting an error. And it's storing it and throwing it back at me. And so I'm going to go down here and I'm going to look at what my form data is. And it says I'm sending a line, and that's the line I typed in. So that's the way that the grub command used to work. And so when I came in here and I thought about this, I thought, well, what do I do? I mean, this is all very hacky. All this stuff is very hacky, but and I say the part that's hacky about it is not that it's being loaded with an eval statement in the shell. It's hacky because when it called the grub endpoint, it actually just passed in the line, and then the grub endpoint would strip out what the line was and then extract the URL and then pass that in. So I feel like that's kind of what I need to do, but then the problem is I like parity with like what the shell is calling as well as what people can call from here. So one of the things that I could do is I could add an extra statement here, and I could say, or an extra parameter here, and I could say line. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to stub this out, and I'm going to see what it looks like. Just to mull it around if this is what I want to do. Because otherwise what I'm going to need to do here is in the shell, if I do something like this, well then I already have in Python, I already have a way to parse out all the bits. So even if I put a tag in here, something like that, what this really says here is like, you should create a spool, and the spool gets created with a URL in it, and then it would have a comma here, and it would have news, pound news in there, and then it would also have the URL passed to it, and which is right here. But then in the APIs, you're supposed to pass the URL yourself. So what that means that JavaScript would need to know it. So it's like, well, where should I do this? I mean, should I do it in Java? Should I parse it in JavaScript, or should I parse it on the server? And my feeling on the matter is that I've wanted to keep the shell stuff really simple so that it doesn't get overly complicated. And so currently this is the entire file. In fact, if you look at the page source, this is the source of that page. That's it. Now there's a bunch of library, or I say a bunch, there's a few libraries here that I'm using. I'm using jQuery console, which itself is pretty big. And it's been hacked up by me. I say hacked up, I fixed it. And then decruftified it. And so it's my own version of jQuery console. And then I'm using drop upload, which I also wrote a big chunk of this. I copied this from somebody else, but it's a big chunk of it is written by me. And then jQuery, which I didn't write. My name is not John Rissig, so I didn't write jQuery. And then I've got some styles, and other than that, that's it. There's not really any more to the shell than that. It's actually quite simple. I don't want to make it overly complicated. So if we look at the help, it says here that Grub should take a URL and some tags, and then it crawls the page. Now, crawling the page is going to return a spool object, which is just like if I did an upload. And I said something like, I don't know, Sierras. So if I was, wanting to create an album or something called Sierras, then I could use this to, I'll upload the dog again. I could use this to, that's now broken. I have no idea why it broke. It was working. Then the idea is that the spool at this point, once I've done the upload, either through the uploader or by calling Grub, is that I now have a spool that has images in it and plus tags that the user has given me. And in the case of like Grub, it also has the title and description. And here I don't have a title and description. I just have a tag. So I don't know, like this spool will not have a title and description, so I don't know whether to put a title and description in here. I don't know. I feel like it's sort of like an album. It could be like a collection of photos. I don't know. We'll figure it out later. We'll work on this later. I'm feeling like maybe we might get to it in this episode, but maybe not. I don't know. Depends on how much I talk. Okay, so with Grub, then what I need is, so there's two things to do with Grub. So the first one is if I go to something like Google, well, I always like to go and look at, let's go in here and find something cool. This is always what gets me like off track. The world is full of wasted motion. Okay, whatever. RNA memory hypothesis. Yeah, there's an old theory that memory is actually encoded in part in RNA. Oh, that's interesting. Do you know, like Dolly, the sheep? They figured out the reason they couldn't clone the sheep when they first started working on the cloning a sheep. That they figured out they couldn't clone the sheep because they figured out there was actually stuff attached to the outside of the sheep's DNA. So the DNA is all wound up, of course, and like it would get unwound, and then it would make a copy of it, and then it would attach stuff to the outside, and then it would wind it back up and stick it in the cell, or it'd be in the cell. And then they would look in the cell, and then all of a sudden there's like all these like updates on the outside of the DNA. And so I don't remember who the person was that ended up cloning the sheep, a guy or a woman, I don't know. And they figured out by stripping off of those updates on the outside of the DNA, they could clone the sheep. So that was where Dolly came about. Anyway, random fact. So what you can do is once you go to a website and you say, I want to remember this, you can bookmark it, you just stick mitta.us on the front of it. That's all you have to do. You don't even have to put HTTPS. You just stick the domain on the front of it and you hit enter, and then it bookmarks it, and it's going to want me to log in. And then you can and then if I type in my token, I don't have my phone in here with me. And then when you type this in, you log in, then what happens is it bookmarks it for you. Well, bookmark it. I'm trying to avoid saying bookmark because it's not really bookmarking. It's like imaging. So it's not bookmarking it. It's not a bookmark. It's a search engine. So it's indexing it. It's like Google. It's Google. It's creating, making it searchable is what it's doing. So that's a way to get Grub to crawl something is just by type mitta.us in front of it and then slash and then hit enter, and it'll send the Grub server. Once you log in, it'll send the Grub server out to image the URL you were wanting to remember. Okay, so what it ends up doing is essentially just the sidekick itself. It will actually type it in for you and hits enter. So it's all automated, but it's also all broken because the grub command is not working at all, and now I'm going to fix it. Okay, so in shell, what happens is all of these commands here, these JS commands, are dynamically loaded. So if the user types in a bang and then some word without any spaces and hits enter, it attempts to load that command dynamically. And if we look here, you can see that it did that here. So that's where it tried to load it. And the response should be that there it's a 404. So it actually returned a 404 right here. It returned this file because it wasn't found. And that all gets returned from shell. And it says right here, JavaScript command, it says try, and if there's an exception where it's trying to load it, then it says load the not found command and return that. And that's exactly where that response came from. So that's sort of how it works. So whenever you run grub, it's going to come in here and it's going to do this. And so the first thing that I'm doing in the grub command, and I'm going to clear this out a little bit. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm saying set a timeout, which is 2 seconds, and I'm giving the user 2 seconds to cancel a redirect, and that's only if there's a redirect. And the redirect comes in if you've typed mitta.us in front of it, slash, hit enter, then the bot types in the stuff, and then it'll redirect you back to the page. So that's what it does. And then there's like some tricky bits with it, like handling, like having to log in and stuff, and then having to redirect back. So there's some work to do there to get you back to where you came from. But if you're just in here and you're typing in grub, which is the thing that says basically go crawl this, we're calling it grub instead of crawl as the command, then it has a little bit different flow. And the flow is that what it's going to do is, well, one of the things it's going to do is it's going to set a timeout for 12 seconds after you hit enter. And then it's going to say still working, which is just a way to say it's not done yet, some way of handling it. And the reason I was doing that is because it was taking about 10 seconds to image a page. And then you go on a little bit more and it says 1 moment please, which is where that's coming from, and then it scrolls. If it's down at the bottom of the page, it has to scroll the page. And the scroll function is here. So there's a little element at the bottom of the page called scrolly, and it'll always try to go down to scrolly whenever you're typing stuff in. Okay, and then what happens is it says I'm going to run an Ajax command. I'm going to do a post, doing it to G, which is our API that we've been working on. And then it's going to post the line. And then it's going to make it a data type JSON, and then it's going to say if there's an error, run this, which is what it's doing. And it says internal server error, and then it says set timeout, and okay, so that's pretty much it. So, and then if it's done, it should do all this, which is not doing that because it's not working. Okay, so what we can do is we can say, well, why is it doing that? And we can answer the question by going in here and trying it out ourselves. And what we're going to do is we're going to change this URL entry to line, and then we're just going to type in the line that we typed in, which is Grub, and then I think that's it. And that's to be somewhat expected. Event not found. It's not. It's not encoded here. Oh. So we gotta say line equals bang grub. That's it. Well, it's still fussing about that. Can we? Well, it's not even accepting it. It's kind of interesting. Okay, so we're gonna do line equals. Oh yeah, it's 21, I forgot. Okay, we're going to shift insert. All right. Okay, there we go. And there's my error. And I really shouldn't be getting that error. Expected a string or bytes like object. It says here with the RE. Utils, that's not me. It's saying here in libutil line 67 in find URLs. Expecting string or bytes like its object. Okay, so we're going to go into utils or util. And we have a function here. All right, so we're going to run that again. None. Expected string or bytes like the object. Well, the reason why that's happening is because find URLs is being called from crawl here, and I'm giving it the URL, but there's no URL. So what I could do is I could say if not URL, well, I could say if URL, whoops. What happened there? I don't want to be in here. How did I get back here? I swear I didn't touch anything. Okay. So I want to say if URL. Yeah, first URL only, whatever. It says fix this, so I will. Else, I'll fix it later. Else, if there's no URL, then I should look for a line. Request.form.get line. Yeah. And then I have somewhere an upload. I have a bunch of this code I saved from when I wrote it the first time. So I have this function called builder. So I'm going to say if line does not equal nothing, then do that. And then I'm going to print query URLs. I don't remember what I called it. Let me go look at the builder. URLs. So it runs find URLs for me. Builder does. So I can just say URLs here. And that should print my URL. Connection was reset. UID not defined. So this is, in this context, I say context, in this particular instance, it's, is it Flask login, current user.uid. Bound method builder URLs of libbuilder object. Need a valid URL. Okay. But then, what was this? It's a bound method builder URLs of libbuilder builder object. Really? I thought it just returned find URLs. Which is in util. Why is it a bound method? I don't understand. Oh. That's it. So there's our URL. Okay, so that could be just, I guess, a secret function. So if you, like, it's probably not necessary to, go in here and update this. I just update the crawl with just slightly with this, and I say URL equals query URLs, and then it's the first element of it. That's it. So what I'm saying here is grab a URL from the call. If there is no URL, grab the line, and if there's a line, if there's a line and it doesn't equal nothing, then run the query builder. Which builder is this builder function that I have? It's a way for the system to parse whatever the user's typing here. So if the user types in, something like Grub, or in the case of settings, for example, we have like settings, and then I could say Steve equals Malmer. I think that's how you still Steve Malm. So then you like all of those things are parsed out with builder. So Builder pulls all of that out. But if I just type in something like that, well, it'll still do it, but then it just ignores the rest of it. And in the case of this command, settings ignores the text that's included in it. But in a function like search, for example, so if I were to say Balmer, right, then those commands come up because they're in the index now, because I typed in Balmer in an entry and it is in the text, so it's in this thing called words. And you can see the text here is the thing that was on the end. So it captured that and stuck it in a thing called text, but then it stripped out the rest of the commands. That's why I have these commands, is because I want like to be able to like have this unified interface or query. This thing's a box. It's just a query box. It's just an input box. It looks like a prompt, but it's just an input box. So if you go in and you inspect this box, where is it? Come back. It's a little tricky sometimes. There's the prompt label, and there's the prompt. Well, I guess, actually the input box is hidden. It's like over here somewhere. I don't know. Like they do some, like jQuery console does something totally funky with that. Let's go look at it. It's good to go look at it, because then like whoever's watching this, and then you can kind of go, oh yeah, there's got an input box. Let's see here. Where is it? I've completely gone and forgotten about where it is. Well, it's not in here. Oh, I think it's in jQuery console. Let's see here. Let's see, input. That's not it. Well, that's not it. Wait. Nope. Well, where is it? Maybe there's not an input box. Maybe it just fakes it. I guess there's not an input box. I guess I was... anyway, brain fart. There's no input box. Yeah, it's just... Anyway, you can actually paste in here. It's kind of nice. Anyway, so... where was I? So you can then... so at this point, I'm taking... I'm like kind of like hidden function for dealing with the shell is, you know, checking this line. So then if there's no URL, then just say there's an error. And then I probably ought to say something like, you should give me a URL or something, but that's interesting. What's it doing? Well, it looks like it's making a successful call, but there's nothing in there. So technically URL should be, the line is there, but it's not finding URL. So, but then I bet you a nickel that URL is being printed though. List out of range. Here. All right, that should give me an error. Oh, come on. It's empty. Why is it empty? Well, because this is empty. I guess that's a none of it. I don't know. Unexpected indent. Where? Where's an unexpected indent? Line 58. still not giving me an error. That's not running. None. I thought for sure that would... Wouldn't that catch it? Oh, for Pete's sakes. Well, having error because there's an error. Give me an error. It's like, then make me run. It says none. So if we look at the first one, it's not. Let's try that, because it's actually a request form get. I think there we go. Now that's right. And then if I type in https news.google.com, it's still giving me an error. Non-object has no length. Well, but then it is none. Why is it? What is printing this? What is printing this thing? So let's try printing. Let's try printing no URL parm. Of course it works now. Parse error, unexpected token in JSON at position 435 reported. That's so nice. Now I have little errors popping out in here. I mean, I couldn't get them in the browser, so then I have them popping out in here. So it's kind of nice. I can see what's going on, I think. So what if I don't type in anything? See, it doesn't, it thinks that I have a URL or something. No URL parm. Well, that's not true. Oh, well, yeah, it is true. I don't have any URL parm because I'm not doing it with the... So what's this? It says, okay, so we want an empty one, and this should give me an error. And it's not printing out anything. So it says, if URL, else print no URL parm. Well, that's true. Oh, if line does not equal... Well, that's not going to be... I feel like what I actually ought to do here is I ought to say URL equals query.urls instead of testing if the line has got something in it, because testing the line having something in it, I mean, the line is going to have something in it because I typed grub, and that's how I got into this file. So... okay. So here I'm going to say read the line parm and find a URL if present. Okay. And then I'm going to say if not URL. Oh, wait a minute. I got to process this. Yes. That should be it. That's better. There we go. And then if I give it this, it should not be an error. Perfect. Well, I mean, it's still an error, but it's not the same error. Okay, wait a minute. Let me see if anybody said anything to me. Nobody has said anything. Was that me earlier? I think it was. time is it? 5:16. It's been 50 minutes. And yeah, so that was me, I think, watching. So then if I come back here in just a second, that should be me again. So I don't think anybody's watching. But maybe later somebody will watch. It doesn't matter. I appreciate it if you are watching. I'm not really too terribly worried about getting viewers right now because I don't figure that I'm going to get any viewers until like episode 50. Then I'll probably have some viewers. Because you have to be consistent with stuff on YouTube. That's the trick. I don't know that... I watched a little bit of this guy's live stream, and he did like a 12-hour coding live stream. I don't know. It seemed like I'm moving about as fast as he was, so I don't know. Maybe I'm boring. Okay, so let's close that. Still working. Okay, so I'm going to clear this out. The shell needs some UI love, but we'll get to that eventually. I gotta do some style sheets and stuff with this. I mean, being a solo founder, it's super hard. I mean, number one, you have to have some capital to do it, because otherwise you got a full-time job. And I don't know, I mean, I don't think that it's impossible for people to like do a startup while they have another job, but certainly it would make it challenging. But I'm working on this pretty much full-time. I probably put in 30 hours a week on it at least, sometimes more. And I don't record all of it, but if I do 5 episodes a week, that's at least 10 hours of streaming. I'm definitely doing like 3x of that outside of that time because I do sit down and work on other stuff. I have to sort of prep a little bit for what I'm doing. And then I'm also writing some other code, and I've written a bunch of other code for it already. So I'm just going to dedicate the time to it. I think it'll eventually work out. So if anybody has any suggestions, let me know. But then at the same time, I mean, like at some point I'll start getting some users, I hope. Seems like it's somewhat useful. Maybe. I got to get it working first, though. So we'll see about that first, which is the idea of this. So by episode 100, and I'm done, and I get done with it, and then there's no users, then that's it. I'll just leave it up running and go get a job or do something else. So I think that's it. I don't need anything else in here, so I'm closing crawl. And I'll come back to it later. I don't need upload. And I don't need spool, but I might need to refer to it, and I don't need the models. Okay, I'm just simplifying things here so that I have a little bit of clean up what I'm looking at here. Okay, so everything's still running? Yep. And there I was, that was me looking at it myself. So it's not a user. I was kind of sweating that yesterday. I was like, oh my gosh, I have a user watching, and then they left. It was me. Watched myself, and then I left. And then I made myself feel bad because I left. Okay. So in here, I want to look at, I'm going to do an inspection. I'm going to do network inspection, and I'm going to do that grub command again. And then I'm going to see what happens here. So like the first thing that happens is I send out a request that hits /c, which is the console handler. And /c takes, again, the line, which is whatever the user typed in. And then its response is grub.js, which is the thing I'm working on. And then grub runs, and it runs this AJAX call, and it makes this call to /g. And then /g responds with, oh, here you go, here's this thing. And you can see I've been adding, every time I run it, I'm getting more pictures. So it's working. That other stuff that I wrote, the second that I fixed it being able to get a URL by hacking up the crawl endpoint, then the crawler started picking it up because I was making a correct call to the grub endpoint, to this crawl endpoint right here, to this post G. So, and what it's been doing is like check to make sure that, oh, well, here's this user and the same URL, so I'm not going to create a new spool. I'm going to just keep adding those images to it. And that's exactly what happened. So let's go look at one of these. Storage. And thank you, Google. You added some functionality for sorting by create time. So we can now look at the images. Well, that's interesting. I don't see that file. Am I in the right bucket? I'm in meta images dev. Oh, it's not putting it in meta images dev, it's putting in a prod. So it's putting in the production bucket. The reason it's putting it in the production bucket is because the crawler box is doing a post back to, I'm hitting the crawler box in production from my dev box. And so what it's doing now is it's posting back to prod. So that's fine. I don't care. And that should be the image. So this should be Google News. There it is. So this is current. So this is what it should look like right now if I go to it. Now Google News is going to customize itself a little bit for me, but it should show me similar stuff. There it is. Schools can reopen. Yeah, it's showing me stuff about, well, that one guy and black holes. So anonymous user is not getting exactly what I'm getting. That's fine. Eventually you'll be able to like take your own screenshots by just clicking on the icon up here, the Mitta icon, but that'll be in a subsequent, I'll have to write that. I figured out how to do it, but haven't gotten around to it yet. Okay, that's great. That's great news. So we've got that file. It's being uploaded. So I'd like to show it to the user, but I don't know. What I really want to do is I just want it to come back and say the title and the description, just like it did before. So that's what I'm shooting for right at the moment. All right, so it says then done. And so the data document, so it's not going to be called document anymore, it's going to be called spool. And then it's going to be called spool. This is the stuff for the, there he is yawning again. Sorry. This is the stuff for the redirect. If I type in meta.us in the front of the URL, this is the stuff that gets printed out. Well, actually, this is the stuff that gets thrown up whenever you put a redirect pipe on the end of it. So if I do something like this. Where's my prompt? Yeah, so it doesn't, it's saying unexpected, oh, so there's something wrong with my JSON. Interesting. Where did I get the JSON back? Let me see here. That was the inspector, right? Network here. So I wonder if this is valid JSON. I'm suspecting it's not valid JSON. Nope. So it doesn't like that tags thing. So I gotta go fix the template for it. Spool. And that's, so I guess it's where, oh well, it's where I'm adding it in crawl. Not so fast, partner. here. Well, I say URL right there. Tags equals create a spool for storage. Tags. Is it in the model? Where are you getting this from? Tags? It's weird. It says expect a string number true, false. Got undefined. What? Those are in there. Is it really that? I don't know. Can I not? Let's do this. That's not valid JSON? No. No, it's not. But this is. Now the question is, where is that coming from? Here. I feel like what I want to do is like tags here. Here. Well, that's a Python object. I mean, a Python list. And then here. Something like this, which I'm going to have to do at the same time the file name. Yeah, like that. I don't know. Two boxes of barfs. I'm gonna go back in here and change this to say URL equals. Okay, that looks better. So let's take this and see if this is valid JSON. This should be valid JSON now. Control insert, silly program. Bam. Okay. So that should be fixed. Now, do I do that somewhere else? I think I do. I'm doing it in upload. Here. JSON dumps. So the deal is that tags is it's a list, it's a Python list, but then like the Python list, if I do a list in Python, probably. Let's see what it does. And then I do foo, there we go, that's what I was doing. So by doing JSON dumps, foo, then I actually get the quotes, which is what I wanted. And then I've got two things here that it's doing that. Build the return objects value with client context. And then I need to do it down here too. Create a spool for storage. It's probably a better place to put this, but okay. And then now we're going to run this again and see if it works. Looks promising. Maybe. Maybe not. They're running. Still working. Did it run? If done, spool. Why don't you use React? Because I don't want to learn how to use it. I'm stubborn. There we go. Boom! Okay, so something didn't get stuck in there. And you'll notice it redirected me back. So that's fine. Whoops. Oh god. Am I still streaming? Hope I didn't kill my stream. Oh no. Okay. Woo! That was a close one. Okay. So let's test that again. So let's image. Let's grab HTTPS news.ycombinator.com/news. It's Hacker News. Now let's go see if we have a picture of Hacker News in here. That's something else. Did I sort? Am I in the right bucket? I'm in the right bucket. I just need to sort. Boom. Okay, so there's Hacker News. All right. So that command I ran just imaged that. So you want proof? Okay, I'll give you proof. Now let's go to Hacker News directly. And whoops. And then we're going to go, I don't know, something interesting, something non-depressing about the news. SEC hunts for fraud in social media posts that drove up GameStop. Good luck, SEC. All right, and then we're going to use our little trick. That won't work. We can do this. It's magic. Yes! Did it work? Oh, it's Bloomberg. Bloomberg's so difficult. Bloomberg doesn't like you indexing them. Alright, let's see what happened here. Is it still sorting? The sort disappears. I got the same file, isn't it? Yeah, it's the same file. Bloomberg doesn't like you to index them. Did that work? What is this? Is that the Bloomberg? Is that the actual Bloomberg article? I don't know. Let's do another one. Let's not do Bloomberg. I have problems with Bloomberg. And I mean not ethical problems or mental problems or anything. They're just like hard to deal with. Okay, so it says internal server error. So can I just run that myself? Huh. Did it crash? Defending software build pipelines from malicious attack. What? Oh, that's the name of the article. It wasn't an error. I was like, what? What does it say? Clouding DB options, bad value error, expected string got meta content equals defending software build pipelines from malicious attack. Property OG title. Well, where's that coming from? Can we like just index a normal site? I don't know. This is what I'm talking about. This is what's so friggin' frustrating about like doing web stuff, crawling the web. It's just super frustrating. People just have to always do things their own way. Is this gonna work? Watch me being bitching about this and then it's like actually me having the problem. But what's going on here? Well, see, that one works. Fellow Amazonians. Okay. So the page is actually not being indexed. So I would say that I would say that so we know Bloomberg. Look at that URL. I don't even know what's going on with that URL. I guess it's Bloomberg law. That doesn't matter. They don't like you to do anything. Let's look at this. Okay, that looks like a normal URL, right? So we're going to go to Mitta and we're going to say Grub, and then we're going to paste in that URL. And then it's going to say internal server error. And the reason why is because why? Because it says here, expected stream got meta content, Senate approves power sharing plan to govern 50-50 Senate. OG title. Where did this originate? In models? Line 204? File names? That's just the create function. So that's in here, right here. So the 204. Yeah, so it's barfing when it gets down to here because something is wrong with one of these titles. So if we go and look in crawl, and we were to look at the title and description here, so what we're going to do is we're going to print title, and then we're going to print description. And there's something wrong with those two. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do this little trick, because there's a bunch of junk flying past, so I can see it. Alright, so then I'm going to run this again, and then we're going to go look and see if we see anything in here. I see absolutely nothing. It's just raising an exception on line 82. So I never got to it. It's up here. So we put it in this little print statement right here and then see what we get. There it was. So for just a second, this thing right here. What? Line 76. Title reference before assignment. Oh. That's because it's result title. Oh, Sublime. Why do you do this to me? Yep. I know that isn't true. There it was. Okay, so we can see here that the meta content, so we've got tags in here, and we can't have that. We don't want it. But that's because what they're doing is they're saying the content is centered, I mean, whatever on this page, we have this thing called meta content. Who knows? Let's go look at it. View page source. I don't even see it. Well, here's something. It says meta content. Oh, I see. It just reordered it. That's it right there. So OG title. Well, we're gonna have to go look at the soup function. Print statement. Okay, so we're gonna beautiful soup it. We're gonna say find title. So let's do that. And we don't have a title. We don't even have a title on the page. I mean, how many thousands of different ways is there to build a web page? Millions of ways to build a web page. Okay, so it says OG title. So I say title, find soup title string. Right, so I'm right here. If not title, find the meta property OG title. Try grabbing the title content string. So this thing right here. I think that probably worked. Here. That's the URL. That's the description. This is the OG title. Yeah, property OG title. So find meta. Yeah. OG title. Yes. But then the description was working. If not description equals soup find attributes name description. If not description equals soup find meta OG description. Try description equals description content. Oh. I guess we could do. I'm just leaning toward making it nothing because there is no description. If we don't get a description. So I need this same thing here. I don't think I ever found a page to test this on that was dealing with the title. So I think this is what I want to do. Nested try accepts. All right. I think that's right. And then this will be title, whatever. All right. Let's try that. Maybe Bloomberg wasn't really giving me any trouble. Having error. Woo! Yeah, that's right, baby. That's working. All right, so now we should be able to go here and let's go to another article. Let's go to this article. Now listen, Bloomberg. What I'm doing is totally legal, and I'm doing you a favor by imaging your website because people pay me to do it, and I'll show it to everybody. Not just anybody can see this stuff. It's only people paying for it. Oh, nice. Papa John's beats investors' suit on toxic workplace culture. And then I had the description there for a second, so I'm going to go back. See how awesome that is? It even does it when you log in. It's a good way to save it. So I'm going to copy this. And then we're going to go back to ugly asparagus. That's the index I'm using. Grub. And then I'm going to paste in that. And then that should just give it to me. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go look at these objects. This is the data store entities. And then stool. Cool. Yep. And then if we look, now we've got a file name. So this is Bloomberg. And then I'm going to go look, and so we should see a file name. I mean, that's the encoded file name, so we can't actually see the real file name from here. we could do a query for it. So do we know we're not returning the spool name, so let's do that real quick. Well, let's go look at it first. We can sort it by date. I think this is it, actually. This would be kind of exciting. Oh, look at that. There it is. I was thinking about this today. So whenever, let's actually do this in real time. So we're going to go to Google Vision. And we're gonna go to try it. This file, let's see here, I downloaded that, so. Right, that's this one. Not a robot yet. I will be paying for this though. So Google is running AI on this. So and it's a screenshot, that's correct. Software engineering, that's me. And then we go to text. And you can see all the text here. So Bloomberg terminal demo request. Bloomberg law. I wonder what that is. I don't know. So one of the things that happens here is, we can show the JSON of this, is Google returns the position on the page of the text. So I was thinking about this today when I was driving back. And this takes forever for some reason to click on this. Really? Come on, Google. There we go. And so you can see that it's giving, I think these are crop hints. This is the request. I would normally just tell it, I just want, I forget, like does it, there's a function that you say I want the text. This thing, this JSON is so big, it's really hard to like manipulate. I don't know what the JavaScript on this page is, like foobarred or something. I have no idea. Come on, Google. I can't click on that. I'm going to click on that. That should copy it. We're going to go over here. We're going to paste this in. We're going to do new. Alright, so now, because Sublime doesn't suck, we can go in here and we can look at, yeah, so you can see the words in here. And you have the bounding boxes. So you have position of words on the page. Super powerful if you think about this idea a little bit. So I'm gonna go do one. I'm gonna get off coding for just a second. I'm gonna talk a little bit about strategy here. See, that's totally me. So we got 37 minutes left. That's good. Okay, so let's go image something else. And in this case, what I'm going to image is stack exchange cooking? No. Seasoned advice. I don't even know where that comes from. This comes out of the queue, I guess. Boop. Okay, so can you make a burger from pepperoni? Can you make a burger from pepperoni? No, but you can make a pizza from pepperoni, but you cannot make a burger from pepperoni. Can you make a whole burger out of pepperoni? What would it taste like? It wouldn't be cheap, of course. Well, sure, it's cheap. Pepperoni's cheap. It's cheaper than burger. Would it be a patty-shaped pepperoni instead of it being a link shape? Well, no. I mean, if it's pepperoni, it's like a little disc, right? I mean, that's why he's saying, could you make a burger out of it? Silly answer. Okay, so anyway, so if let's image this, okay? So we're gonna go, let's say local host 8080 slash. Unexpected token in JSON position. Okay. Why? Why? Do it again. Except I can't. It's because it's pepperoni. It's parser. Oh, for God's sakes. It's because it's got quotes in it. That's just perfect. Is it? What is it doing? Could you make a whole bird? It might be. I think that's like a line feed. In fact, I know it's a line feed. Okay, so we gotta fix this. This is like testing this. Interesting. Testing a crawler is very interesting. Okay, so we're gonna look at the page source, and then the thing we're having a problem with is the description. No, I don't want to add a bookmark. And then here it is right here. I was just thinking, I love pepperoni. Can you make a whole burger out of pepperoni? It might. It would. Oh. Like, what is that? A line feed character. Okay, well, so what we need to do is we need to strip line feeds out of here. This is like security nightmare. Security nightmare alert. Okay, so we're doing this in crawl. And more specifically, this title and description is coming in from HTML crawl. Right here. So HTML crawl is up in soup. Sudo soup. And then here it is right here. Description equals description content. Well, let's print it. Let's see what we're dealing with. Like, so it's in the HTML, it's a, the hell? I mean, I don't know what soup finds in there. I'm telling it to find that, and then it's like loading it. So I have no idea what, it could be like on HTML encoding it. There's no telling. Here it's clearly like encoded. But when it pops out, it's unencoded, so it has to be not doing the right thing there. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then we're printing it out, and there it is. Right? Where's my? It might be near to incorporate shredded. I don't even know what that means. It might be near to incorporate shredded. Well, so it is. So what I need something that Python strip line feeds carriage returns. I don't know what that is. It's strip. How to remove trailing new line. Try our strip. L strip, strip, split lines, R strip, 154 votes. Okay, so let's minimize that. And then I need to do that on the end. And I need to do it for the title. And I need to do it here. Yep. All right, let's try that again. Is that? It's still there. Can I just do rstrip? No, wait. It's not rstrip. That's right strip. It's strip. Right? This is in the middle somewhere. That didn't work either. Is it because I got them both in here like this? Will that work? What about the R? Nope. What about the strip? Oh. Nope. Remove all line breaks. Oh. Well, that doesn't count for strip, does it? I mean, I'm putting it there like it's going to work, but on title, but it probably won't work. Well, it's pretty funny. Well, maybe it's a carriage return. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's probably 1,000 different ways to long string. 1,000 different ways to do it. Is that what I'm doing? I was saying I need to do it with a raw, but I don't think I do. As he confidently copies and replaces the other code. There we go. Every day running into some problem. Showing my limitations. That didn't work either. Oh, it did work. Yes. Beef. Can you make burger from pepperoni? Seasoned advice. I was just thinking I love pepperoni. Can you make a whole burger out of pepperoni? I wonder what this would taste like. Okay, great. So now we have it imaged and we have something fixed in here. So let's make sure we got all of that. That all looks good. So I'm thinking this file, this is going to get a lot of work. Lots of work will go into this file, into this soup file. Because one of the things that I want to do is, if you look at, actually seasoned advice is the one that I was specifically thinking about today. If you look at this, you've got this post body. So this is a class. Now here's the deal, is that you can have an ID, for example here, main bar. So if on one website, the question that's being asked, let's actually look at the title, that's this one. You can see it's an ID. So this particular thing, right, this particular thing right here is an ID. If you go down to the answer, or I'm sorry, the body of the question, it is not an ID, it's a div class. And then if you go down to the answer, one of the answers, and you look at it, it is also an ID that you then have to recurse into to get that. Let's go to one that has more answers. Oops. This one looks popular. What makes frozen burger patties bland? Inspect. Okay, so now we have this thing, answer. So that's that answer, right? Yeah. So if I went into the ID, I could get the answer, but then the question content itself, the substance of the question, is not an ID. So, I mean, like parsing this from a standpoint of like knowing, like you would basically have to have a custom parser for Stack Exchange. I mean, even though there's sort of a standard, HTML format for being able, like the browser understands it, you've got divs and you've got divs with classes and you've got divs with IDs. And it ends up being confusing when you're trying to parse it and pull out something meaningful. Okay, so now you get that it's a hard problem to solve, especially if you look at a million different websites. And on some sites even you could have different formats on different pages. But essentially on every page you have something that what you would consider a title. So this is the name of the site. You have a title, and then you have a question, and then you have some answers. And that's pretty much the same on every site. If you go to Reddit, it's kind of like the same way, right? So in this case, what I was thinking about was that if you have the image here, so this is just an image, so there's nothing else here. This is just it. This is the entirety of the page, but I have it in the machine. And if I take this, and it's Q30, and I go here, and I say new file, I Q30, and I say open. Now it's going to run on it. Cost of these are pretty reasonable. It's pennies to run on it. And later on, I'll train a neural network to do it myself. Maybe. Hopefully. It should be fairly straightforward. I don't know if I can do it as well as Google does, but we can try. So then we click on text, terrestrial plant. Is that the background? It thinks that's a plant. Green. So we go in here, and then we have locations of things. So if we look at this font's kind of big. So if we were to look at wherever it says, can you make a burger from pepperoni? Right here? Well, if we were to go in and look at the JSON, then we could probably tell that's a little bit bigger. We could also tell that it was at the top of the page. And then we could also tell things like every time we look at the top of the page in this position here, around this section, these are always the same words. So this is stuff that the neural network is good at. It's also like could say, well, I don't want to index this, or I don't want to like make this important because every time I look over here, there's a button here. So if you've ever stared at something, like if you just stare at a screen or something, right, and you can hold your eye fixed on something, there's a whole bunch of these things on the internet. But let's just Google it. Stare at something on page and it disappears. Try it now. All right, this optical illusion. Okay, so I'm going to try this. So I'm going to stare at this dot. So you do it too. Okay, so the things are disappearing. Keep staring at the dot. Okay, so I see yellow stuff. I want to close one eye, so I'm using my left eye, which you can probably tell. I'm moving my eye around. I'm staring at it. I can still see kind of purple and yellow. I open my right eye and then I can see it again, and now I close my right eye and it's disappearing. I can kind of see the yellow ones. So if you stare at something long enough with your eyes, your brain starts filtering out that extraneous stuff. It even works if you just stare at the wall or something. Things will start disappearing. And it's because of the way your brain processes things. So I'm thinking like a neural network could do that too. So if you had it stare at enough of these pages, then all of that other stuff will just kind of fade into the background. And so all of this junk up here, all of this text up here, all will fade in the background because a whole bunch of these pages, if you do enough of these pages. Did we do 2 of these? Yeah, we did the burger one. So let's go back and let's pull up the other page. It's not Q30. Is it this one? Yeah, burger from pepperoni. Oh no, it's the same one. Well, did it break when you ran it on that one? Can you make a burger? Well, that's not the one. So I'm gonna delete this. Oh, that doesn't work. That's unfortunate. I need to make that work. What's going on here? Come on, shell. Okay. I'm gonna do Grub, and then I'm gonna do this one. Not that one. Oven jerky. Yep. So, oven jerky a possibility? I was thinking a lot about the comments in my post that claimed that oven would dry out foods meant to be cooked on a stove. Okay. If I delay enough, it'll show up in here. UP, that's it. It was a lot of work to just illustrate a point, but it's an important one. Okay, so here, all right, so there's both of those pages. So if I put one over here and I put one over here, and then I make them bigger, like to hit 20. Right? And then I look at them. Well, I mean, you can see that there's same stuff that's the same. So this is all the same, this is the same, the questions are the same. I don't want any of that. So if I were to like do a difference in the page, all of that would disappear. And I would just be left with the words that are different. And that's really what you want the neural network doing, is if you have a machine looking at this, you want it to look at what's different about the pages. So if it can look enough of the pages are the same, like Bloomberg, for example, CNN, any news site is going to use the same general format for the page. All of the stuff, the advertising, the headers, the footers, all of the extra questions, like the questions here are different, that's fine. These questions are related to this content, but this stuff is not related to the content, then you should be able to figure out on the page what is not important and take it out of the index, or at least like nerf it a little bit. So you can do things like if a user is clicking on something or mousing over something or like highlight something, then you can use signals to say, well, that's more important. But you could also use signals coming in from the machine learning libraries, the neural network, right, to say, oh, well, this is not important because I've seen it over and over again on 1,000 pages on this domain. So just ignore this. But then the whole idea is, instead of looking for some ID, like having to know that I have to look in this question ID, the ID name up here, look here to get the ID out of the page source, like I do with Beautiful Soup, what you could do is train a neural network. And in fact, Google's network is already probably trained enough that we could use it to say, if you find something at approximately this position, it's probably the title. And if you find something at this particular position, it's probably a question. And if you find something here at this particular position, it's probably an answer. Or moreover, like generally across all sites, if you find something at the top and it's a bigger font, it's probably the title of the page, if you look at enough pages that are on that domain. And if you look lower below and there's always words in this section that are always different, it's probably the content of the page. And if you can do that, then you can automatically start saying things like, all the words in this title are related to each other. Put them in a document, or put them in their own field. And in this case, we are doing that because we're pulling out title and description, because title and description is common-ish enough that we can pull it out without asking a neural network. But it's like a quick and dirty thing. It's kind of like, well, kind of check to see what the title and description is, but then if you really want to know, we're going to have to take a picture of the page and show it to a neural network, which is what we're going to be doing. So that kind of explains the logic behind what we're going to do next with tagging and stuff. But first we have to index the spool, and we haven't done that yet. So where am I at? I've got like 15 minutes left. Okay. So what do we got to do next? So we have talked about that. We don't need that anymore. We don't need that. We don't need Stack Overflow. If you're interested in like learning more about that, like how you can relate words to each other, do a search for SKG Solr. And then go in and look at the JSON Facet API and read this. This is 7.6. Look, if anybody that's working on Solr, you work on the Solr docs, if you're watching this, or you know somebody that works on Solr docs and you're watching this, please go in and remove the old documentation from Google, or change the website so that Google will stop indexing the old docs. If I look for JSON Facet API on Google, if I do this search, if I search for Google and I get this, like, this is just ridiculous. Like, it's 8.7 is the current release. I want the latest documents. Please fix that. It's not hard. It'll take you a day to fix it, or two. Just fix it. Anyway, end rant. Okay, so if you go in here and read this, just scroll all the way to the bottom and read this stuff about the semantic knowledge graph. It's super interesting. It's really powerful. It's one of those really simple things that when I first saw it, and I went around and told everybody, I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. Even the guy that wrote it, Trey, I said, dude, this is awesome. And everybody's like, yeah, whatever, Cord. And I'm like, no, you don't understand how awesome this is. And it is actually awesome, because if you had a neural network looking at this page and you were able to give it a position on the page where the things are, and if we look at location, no, what is it? It should be over here somewhere. Yeah, it's spatial search, right? So there's like this idea of like searching spaces for stuff. Like if you have a positional information of some text or something, or even like objects that are in space and you have a bunch of spatial coordinates, like Solr will actually sort those for you. So with Google telling you where it is on the page, if you have a word at the top of the page and you have another word over here, and the SKG graph has an offset of those two words, and it gives it some sort of relatedness because they're close together, because you've given it the string or the sentence that they're in, then you also have another way to do it by position on the page. So if the words are kind of like not very far away from each other on the page, then they're also relevant to each other. And this is exactly how GPT-3 works, which GPT-3 is this ginormous neural network that has been trained by, I guess, OpenAI and Microsoft. And And what it does is it does like prediction of what the next word is essentially. So if you give it a bunch of words, it has like this model. This is like some huge model that has indexed all of these pages, like tens of millions of pages, from 60% of them from Common Crawl, which is a crawl of the internet, and mostly English. I think it's almost all English. I could be wrong about that, but I think it's mostly English. And it's basically done that by them giving it and training it, and then it doing the iterative training of like checking its output. It's a competitive network. It's like a, what is that called? I don't remember. It's like the idea is that you have like a couple of networks competing against each other, right? And so it tries to predict what comes next, and then if it doesn't rank very well, then it retrains it. So then it back propagates stuff into the network, and it takes quite a bit of power to train these things, but once you get it trained, it's sort of eerily accurate because it's got a bunch of words and a bunch of things that people have said. And if you think about it, like on Google, I think Google at one point in time said, we have like we see a million searches a day, mostly. Like 99.9% of our searches are all about there's a million searches. So like if you look at the words themselves and you look at all the variation of stuff people type in, there's about a million searches that make up 99.9% of their searches. Now there's probably like 20 million other like long tail searches, but most of their searches are all the same. And the reason why is because people all kind of consistently think about the same thing during the day, right? If they watch CNN, or you get on Google News, or you're at work or whatever, like we're all thinking about the same problem, right? Masks and COVID and the president and airplanes and blah, 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 right? Like Elon Musk and stuff like that, right? And so we're all thinking about the same thing. So if you've ever gone over to a friend's house and you're like, hey, did you hear about it? And they're like, oh yeah, I totally heard about it. Well, it's because we're all connected on the internet. So there's like this commonality of stuff. And that's sort of how GPT-3 works, except it trains up on all of this data. So it kind of has like a general idea of what is going to be said next, and then it seems to be somewhat reasonable. And it does have some like basic reasoning, because if you have something written down that explains why you should be thinking about something, then that's sort of how language works. I say something like, the sky is blue, and then there's a whole bunch of references. I looked up at the sky and it was blue, or the blue sky, or came out of the blue, and I say that enough, then there's like words that back up my claim the sky is blue. All right, so anyway, that's a little bit about spatial search. I think I got like 8 minutes left. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do tomorrow. And then I'll prep a little bit. So the upload stuff is all pretty much done. I need to do serving the file names. I need to put dates on the file names in the object store. So I need to do that. So if I go to entities, this is essentially my index now of all of the file names. And it's unfortunate that I can't see what these are in here when I'm browsing them, but eventually there'll be so many spools I won't be able to look at them anyway. So I'll have some tool that'll do this. But this is the JSON encoded file name structure. So this is all the file names. And so those file names are all encoded in there. And then, of course, the files are then stored in storage. And so one of the things I need to do is put date stamps on those, or time stamps on those. And then the last thing that I need to do with all of this is then make it serve up these securely out of storage. And that'll be a little tricky, and I'll probably do that off stream in the morning. And then probably on stream tomorrow, we'll jump into indexing. So I'll start passing once I type in something here. So once I index Bloomberg or something, and that's indexed. I'm sorry, that one. I should probably not use that one. Do this one. Okay, let's clear this out. We don't need to see anything about that topic at all. Isn't that like the thing that they say that if there's enough of anything that always comes up? And so it says still working here, but I'm going to clean that up. And what it should do is in the background, it should be polling. Now, oh yes, I could use React to automatically detect and update the UI, but I don't need to do that because this stuff is not complicated. It's not this file. This is going to get probably no more than maybe 10 more lines long here. And when it's done, the indexer's or the Grub server's done. It should show me a picture of this page, and I should be able to click on it. It should give me a link. I should be able to click on the link. I should be able to go back to the page. It should still work on the redirect. The little prepending trick for telling it to crawl it automatically while I'm on the page. There'll be a button too that you can click on up here. You can install a plugin later. But that little trick will need to, what it needs to do is actually have me type it in. So it'll just put it in there for me and let you hit enter on it. Then it'll bookmark it. And then I'll get rid of this question of whether or not you want to redirect or not, which is, it's kind of weird because I put a button in here to cancel it. So what I'll actually do is just put it in here like this. So when you come to the page, it'll do something like this. And then if you don't want it to redirect, you want it to stay on the page, you can just hit enter. But if you want it to redirect, then you can hit enter, then it'll index it, then it's going to redirect, and it'll do it pretty quickly. You see this cancel redirect thing there. And that's sort of just a handy thing if you wanted it to go to it automatically. So, and then fix that when I go back. I guess there's not a way to fix that when I go back. That's fine. That's redirect. And then, so at that point, I'll be working on the index, and so then we'll be able to say search Bloomberg. And then I would actually get a response back. And I was doing that before. Yeah, upload. If I go down to the bottom here, here's where I create the document. Put some more stuff in the document, and then I add the document, and that actually adds it to the indexer. So that's what I need to do tomorrow is I'll set up all that stuff so that once I get the image back from the system, I'll say to the indexer, well, I'll do two things. So the first thing will be I'll stub out the tag function, and I'll say tag this article. And what that will actually do is extract all the text from the article using Google Vision. And then when I get the tag response back, then I can say, that's an optional thing, and then I can say, now send it off to the indexer. And then it will index it. And then from the indexer, I could say, once it's in the index, I could also say, now run another machine learning library on it once it's in the indexer. So there'll be a way to run machine learning on it before it becomes a document and after it becomes a document. So the idea being, user adds the metadata to it initially. Starting out, for example, with a URL. The system collects a small amount of metadata automatically without any machine learning. It's sort of like Soup is sort of machine learning, right? It's a machine, it's doing some investigation and extraction. And then that builds an object, a spool object, and then you can optionally take the spool object and pass it to the tagger, which is the machine learning library. And then the tagger can do some simple things with that. Now, it doesn't have the image yet, so it could say something simple. But when the spool comes back and it has an image, then it could also send that off to the tagger, and then it could use the images for tagging it. Or you could take that whole thing first and index it, at which point in time you would only have the title and the description and the website, which is a lot of data actually for searching. It's actually good not to have the whole thing necessarily. And then you could run a command and say, now index this document. Now tag this document. And then the tagger could spool up, do a query to the index, pull out the data, look at the images, process those, and then insert more documents into that document for you for searching, which will then improve the search results because you're going to have a machine looking at the content of it. So you'll get back more results, and moreover, you'll get back related results because you can extend topics into other things. So like for example, if you were to index a website, you might get just back the title and description about taking pictures, but you find a picture of a snowflake on the website, and then you pass that off to a machine learning model, then it adds a snowflake tag, and now you have other pages about snowflakes. Well, then all of a sudden now you have related content that can come back automatically because you've used a machine learning library to do it. So those are the things we're going to be doing looking forward. And if you're interested in this stuff and you've watched through this far, I appreciate you. And I hope to see you again soon. And be sure and like, subscribe, and share this. I'm glad that people are subscribing. I got a couple of subscribers over the last couple of days, which is totally awesome. I have 41 subscribers now. Some of them are kind of old, I don't know. But I'm trying to tighten up my video schedule and do this on a regular basis. And so hopefully by the time we hit, like episode 30 to 50 or something like that, doing it regular enough, I'll get some regular subscribers and get you guys involved in the conversation. Maybe get some people interested in testing the site once we get it up and running. We're getting there, so we're getting close. We're crawling again, and that's great news. Now we need to start showing the images in here, and we'll be taking care of that in the next few days. All right, you guys have a great evening. I'll see you soon. Take care.